Ancient texts don't read like fairy tales, they read like records, and some of the creatures written inside them, science still cannot explain.
We're counting down 6 creatures that ancient writers insisted were real, starting from the least disturbing
to the ones science absolutely has no answer for. Coming in at number 6 are the cynocephali, or the dog-headed men. Ancient Greek, Roman, and even early Christian texts repeatedly describe a race of humanoids with human bodies and dog-like heads. They weren't described as monsters, but as a foreign tribe living in distant lands like India and Africa. Writings from Herodotus and Pliny the Elder treat them as real people. What's disturbing is the consistency. The same anatomy, the same behavior, and the same locations described across civilizations that never even met. Science tries to explain this as misinterpretations of other tribes or just myths, but there's no fossil record, no evolutionary path, and no solid explanation for why so many different cultures documented them as living beings. At number 5, we have the Anzu Bird. This creature appears in ancient Sumerian and Akkadian clay tablets, not as a symbol, but as a living animal. It was described as a massive bird with the head of a lion and wings so large they could block out the sun. These tablets listed the Anzu alongside real animals, not gods. Some scholars think it might have been inspired by giant prehistoric birds. But here's the problem. No known bird has lion-like anatomy. No fossil even remotely matches this description, and the Anzu was said to be intelligent and capable of strategy. Science has no category for it. Number 4 is the Naga. In ancient Indian and Southeast Asian texts, the Naga were described as powerful serpent beings, sometimes half-human, sometimes fully reptilian. But they weren't just animals. They were guardians of sacred knowledge, builders of ancient cities, and intelligent beings who lived beneath the earth and water. Texts like the Mahabharata describe them as real entities that interacted with humans. Science cannot explain how such detailed accounts of intelligent reptilian beings appear across multiple regions, why so many ancient temples are aligned with Naga mythology, or why no biological trace of them has ever been found. They don't quite fit into mythology, and they certainly don't fit into biology. Breaking into the top 3, we have the Cyclopes. Ancient Greek texts describe these giant humanoids with a single eye living in remote regions. For years, the common scientific explanation was that these stories were inspired by ancient people finding elephant skulls, which have a large central nasal cavity that looks like one giant eye socket. But that explanation falls apart when you look closer. The texts don't just describe a monster. They describe their behavior, their tools, and their culture. The Cyclopes were said to build structures and interact with humans. A skull cannot explain that. Science has no evidence they existed, but it also has no good explanation for the sheer detail and consistency of the accounts. Our number 2 is the Mu, the Babylonian Dragon. This creature wasn't just a myth. It was carved into the Ishtar Gate of Babylon, one of the most important structures of the ancient world. It was presented as a real creature associated with the gods. It had a serpent's body, the front legs of a lion, and the back claws of an eagle. What's so strange is that Babylonian texts clearly distinguished between myths and real animals, and the Mu appears in both categories. There is no fossil match, no evolutionary explanation, and no scientific category it could possibly fit into. Yet, it was displayed publicly for all to see, as something known, not just imagined. And finally, the number 1 creature science cannot explain is the basilisk. Before it became a legend, the basilisk was described in Roman and medieval texts as a real, biological animal. Writers like Pliny the Elder described it in stunning detail: its size, its habitat, its behavior, and its terrifying lethality. It was said to kill with its venom, poison the land and water just by its presence, and paralyze other animals instantly with its gaze. What makes this so chilling is that ancient people feared encountering it. They didn't worship it. Science has no record of an animal capable of this level of biological destruction, no fossil evidence, and no modern equivalent. And yet, the descriptions read like eyewitness accounts from terrified naturalists. If these creatures never existed, why were they described like wildlife, not myths? And if even one of them was real, what else did ancient people see that our modern world has forgotten? Comment which creature you think was most likely real. Like the video if you think ancient texts deserve more attention. And subscribe because our next episode covers creatures that even historians are afraid to discuss.